What's up, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of Saints Daily, your home for everything to do with the black and gold. I hope you had a fantastic weekend, but let's jump right now into what is happening this weekend, starting on May 8th for rookie minicamp. We went over this a little bit last week about the offseason program, specifically jumping right into the rookie minicamp. The Saints have on May 8th and May 9th. Again, for those who are unaware, rookie minicamp, this is going to be the first time where you get to see the draft picks on the field. You get to see the undrafted free agents on the field. It's very, very light work, no pads. It's just kind of an introduction, getting them out there, running some routes. Lots of good competition that's going to be coming down the line, but just a good idea of where rookies are going to start lining up, if there's any early position battles, and just an overall look at what the players that are being brought in can do. Just a recap of the players that the Saints have brought in through undrafted free agency and the draft picks, starting with the first round pick wide receiver Jordan Tyson. One thing to look out for him is going to be where he's lining up. He's somebody who always kind of, to me, projected to be more of an X receiver, someone who's lining up outside, someone who's not really, lining up in the middle of, the lineup, not really someone that you're expecting to play a lot of slot snaps, but you never know with Kellen Moore. The one thing that they said over and over again about Jordan Tyson, about what excites them about Jordan Tyson, is the fact that he can play anywhere in the lineup. And that's something that they said about all three of the Saints starters, if you include Vele as the third starter over the fourth round pick, Bryce Lance. Is that they can play really anywhere on the field outside, XYZ, any spot on the offense, all three can play. After that, obviously the Saints did draft in the second round defensive tackle Kristen Miller. Again, another thing, I can't imagine the run stopping defensive tackle will play anything but that position on this defense. But again, just always interested to see who might slide a little bit to the right end, right end, left end if Cam's not back, and really who might take up that spot. I'm also, even though he's not a rookie, I know whenever the OTAs come about, I'm very interested to see where Vernon Broughton lines up as well. Very big man, very very promising. And based off of what every coach has said about the player, I'm excited to see him in this offense, or I'm sorry, in this defense next year as well. If really the way I look at Broughton is, this coaching staff, this scouting team completely hit the 2025 draft class out of the park. Um, he's really the only one that there's not a lot of tape on because of the injury. And if he hits like the rest of the draft class hits, it's a really good player to add to your team for sure. Then Oscar Delp, the tight end out of Georgia, is another player that I'm excited to watch here in rookie minicamp. Again, where is he lining up? Is he lining up kind of more of a slot receiver? Are they going to trust him to be on the end of the line to block? That's something that really stands out to me about Oscar Delp is that he might not be the biggest dude, like the most like large looking human being. I think he's like 6'5". He's still can add on a few pounds of muscle, but he's a very willing blocker. He's somebody that Georgia trusted to block defensive ends, not just to block linebackers and safeties, out in space. This is a guy that was lining up at the end of the line and taking on some big men to block. And these are players that, in that conference in college, these are players that are making the NFL. Not all first round picks, but they're players that typically make the NFL. And he's trusted to block those players in college. So assuming that they can hone that in and they can just get that better, 100% think Oscar Delp could be one of the steals of the drafts. Jeremiah Wright, the guard, I'm also very interested to see what's going on there. Mickey Loomis basically said that we would be doing this player a disservice if we started to try to line him up anywhere but guard. Again, this is a player that not too long ago was playing defensive tackle in college. Then he gets drafted in the fourth round by an NFL team. So his talent is very clearly there. He is very athletic and he is very good. He kind of wins by being big. And as a guard, that's a pretty good thing. If you can win by being big, in the run game, you're going to be an asset. You got to just work on the pass block. Completely trust that this coaching staff can do that and can work with this player. But just thinking of, again, when you think of Kellen Moore and his successful stops in the NFL, it's hard to not just immediately jump to the Super Bowl roster with the Philadelphia Eagles. And big men just winning because they're big and being able to push people off the line and getting that 1 or 2 yards the Saints weren't able to get last year. It's something I'm very excited about overall. With the prospect of Jeremiah Wright, I don't expect him to play this year. I think he's got a huge ceiling. And hopefully they let him develop first. But this also could be a sneaky good camp battle down the road with Ruiz if Ruiz doesn't pick it up and Wright just continues to get better and better. Bryce Lance, again, I think he might be kind of a clear out. Hey, I run a 4-3, just 13 personnel, play action pass, deep ball. That might be his entire 2026 season, but he also seems to have a lot of decent route running throughout his college. Excited to see where he lines up, but I'd expect outside. Lorenzo Styles, very very interested to see at least defensively what they're going to do with him. Former wide receiver, played defensive back, kind of that like hybrid corner safety role. He again position switch, someone who has a high ceiling, very athletic, very high RAS score, very fast. 4.2 speed while he was hurt in the combat. I think he ran a 4.27 with like a hurt shoulder. So he's also an extremely good athlete who is being brought in to play special teams. But last year, players like Jonas Sinker were being brought in to play special teams, and then he played some defensive snaps, and well, now your best gunner is our starting safety, so we got to fill that void with a different player. And the special team suffered because of it. So, I think Lorenzo Styles is probably a full-time special teamer this year. Um, does he ever develop into a starting safety, starting defensive back in the NFL? Hard to bet against the bloodlines with his brother going seventh overall and him being newer to the position. But right now, I'd expect that to be a full-time defensive back in the NFL at least maybe in the first couple years of his career. Then you got Barry Brown, LSU wide receiver, one of the best kick returners in the draft, if not the best kick returner in the draft. Again, would expect him to mostly follow up with that. Finally, the draft class with TJ Hall. I would probably expect him at least in rookie camp to maybe be the star role kind of player. Dude's smart. Dude's got football instincts. And he's going to be able to probably make a career based out of being smart and in position. He's just not that fast. He's just not that athletic. But he is absolutely somebody who is smart enough and has the instincts to play long term in the NFL. And his time at Iowa, right? It's weird to think about with him because Iowa's always a good defense, right? But they with him specifically, right? It's just the athletic profile of him. His tape, if you watch, what he puts out on the field, he's solid. He's there, right? He's always around. He's just not flashy, right? And if you think of some other really good players that have played in the NFL that aren't that athlete, but are just in terms of just the ability of being there and just using your football IQ to your advantage and instincts to your advantage, you know, is he going to be an all pro? Probably not, but if you put him in a zone heavy defense, let him blitz, let him, play that star role, it might be a good fit for him. It might not work at all. The game might just be too fast for him, but I've hated some flyers in the seventh round before. This is not one of them. This is a player that I think at the very least could be a contributor on special teams. He's a very good tackler. Maybe you play around with the idea of putting him at safety, and just having him again be a star role kind of player. where you line up a lot inside, and you're that third safety on the field essentially. The free agents, the undrafted free agent class: Cody Hardy, tight end; Alan Heron, offensive tackle; Michael Heldman, edge; Deshaun Jones, corner; Jeremiah McClendon, corner; Keyshawn Silver, defensive tackle; um, Suggs, defensive tackle. Few other players to go through here. The Saints also have a running back that could be coming in, and who knows what noise he could be making as well. But you know, always want to pay attention to the running backs and edges that are ever brought onto this team until there is some kind of finality to the Alvin Kamara and Cam Jordan stuff. But until then, just have to make sure that you are just paying attention to what the rookies are doing, what the team's putting out there, and you know, if there's ever a need to or an option to bring in Cam Jordan and bring him back to to kind of solidify that edge position, I would be very, very happy to see it happen. As an understatement, absolutely would hate to see Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Kamara, any of them leave this team. Demario's obviously already on the Jets, so at this point, gotta just hope that Kamara and Cam can come back. That leadership, that presence, that fanfare is all part of it. But yeah, you never want to see a changing of guard happen that quick in 1 year. At least I don't. Specifically because if you look at the team last year, this team was not supposed to be good, and they weren't. They were bad to start the year. It was not a strong season to start the year, and we have seen this team lose interest after going on a losing streak. The previous coach seemed to lose the locker room relatively quick, and it's a testament to Kellen Moore, absolutely. But it is also a testament to the leadership in that locker room to keep the team together and to make sure that that buy-in was still there. And if you lose those leaders that were doing that, that were responsible for that all in one off season, um, if you go on a losing streak, what happens? And it could happen. I mean, the Saints ended the year last year very strong. Absolutely. It could happen that this team ends up losing a few games, and now all of a sudden you're starting to just like snowball, right? It's that quicksand theory of one thing goes wrong, you try to make up for it, so on and so forth. That veteran leadership last year to me was key and crucial, and I wouldn't want to see all three of those guys leave in one off season. That's all I'm saying. All right. The one thing that I don't think I've heard enough people talking about is the potential kicker battle that is going to be taking place this offseason. So last year, as everybody knows, after Blake Grupe had some struggles, so just so everyone has Blake Grupe's numbers right here, he played in 11 games last year. He was 69.2% with 18 field goals made out of 26 attempts. After those struggles, and the Saints let him go, he seemed to turn it on whenever he went to the Colts. So very good for him, very happy for him. Always had the talent, always had the ability, and he was becoming very consistent. I don't know what happened with this past season, but when he left the Saints, he seemed to put it together again. And again, I know Galliano's respected around the league, the special teams coach, but it seems to happen with some of the players that have left on special teams, where they might struggle here and then they turn it up somewhere else. So, um, you know, not saying that there's a hot seat there, but it is you don't have as many excuses this year, right? You drafted two special teamers to be on your team full time this year. Kicker battle, brought in the punter. If there's no clear improvement, it's a coach that I would be looking at as to what's going on with this team. But to talk about the players on the roster, the Saints brought in Mason Shipley, the kicker out of Texas. He played for Texas State his first 3 years and then ended his college career at Texas, to compete with Charlie Smith. And just the raw numbers from last year alone, right? So Charlie Smith, he played in 6 games, only came in after they cut Blake Grupe. After they cut Blake Grupe, they brought in some veteran, I think it was Cade York was brought in to compete and basically to get the job, and then Charlie Smith beat him out. So he is no stranger to competition in this whole thing of the NFL, even though he is someone that came over through the International Pathway Program. He's definitely got that experience of a battle of beating somebody out for the starting job. Last year, Charlie Smith came in, went 12 of 16, which is obviously not a great number whenever you look at a 75% field goal. You would want that closer, obviously, to 100%, clearly, but you don't want to see anything around 75%. But if you look at his splits, he had 6 attempts from 50 and he missed two of those attempts. I remember one being an end of half attempt that was probably not going to happen. So it stinks that that hits his numbers because obviously when you have so few attempts and you're 12 of 16 and you miss two from 50, though if you take out those two, all of a sudden he's 12 of 14 and that looks much better. Um, you have to make the kicks, but he does have a long of 57, so he immediately comes in and beats out Blake Grupe's long with the Saints, and does a fantastic job, showing off the large leg that he has. Ice in his veins, he came in and he won a game, with a walk-off field goal. He seems to be someone who has it to be able to be an NFL kicker. This is a guy who just learned not that long ago how to kick an NFL football. So I think I would be leaning towards cheering for Charlie Smith. I like the story. I love the story. I love the player. It's just got to be more consistent. Mason Shipley in college, his college career, 51 of 59 for an 86.4% field goal percentage. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So, again, kickers in college sometimes they come over and they just get better. They stay the same. A lot of times it doesn't seem to work out. So, it's why it's so hard to find one of those guys, but that's a you know, pretty good percentage right there. If you look at his season last year, 20 of 24, so he ended up you know, right around where his career average was, a little lower at 83.3%. Um, from 20 to 29, he was 14 of 15, so he did have one miss there. I was trying to find out if it was blocked. I didn't see anything about that specific miss, but outside of that, last year, so he was 3 for 4 from 20 of 29, 14 of 15 throughout his career. Sorry. Um, and then he was 2 of 5 from 50 plus last year. So struggles 50 plus. That's not uncommon for a kicker. 2 for 5, you would love to see that being a little bit higher. His long last year was 53, but his long throughout his college career was a 60-yarder, which was back in 2024 with Texas State. So he does also very, very, very big leg. He does have a very big leg. Throughout his college career, he was 159 of 162 on extra points, just a call out because Charlie Smith was perfect from extra points last year as well. Obviously, if you have to give a betting favorite this early on, it's got to be Charlie Smith because he's done it in the league. But again, it's a position battle that I'm going to be watching very closely. Special teams needs to improve for this team. There's some high hopes locally for this team. Now we've gone over what the national media thinks and what the betting and sports books think, but locally, yeah, there's a lot of pressure for this team to succeed. So if that's going to happen, special teams has to play better. It does. It can't have a repeat of last year. Last year, the Saints kicking was 30 of 42 as a whole, so it was a 71.4% from kicking last year. It cannot repeat like that, and your punting has to be better with Ryan Wright. You have to get better at that phase of the game. You just do. All right. Another thing that I'm going to be looking at is the comeback player for this year, and there's obviously a few. You have Blackman who's coming back, sign a 1-year deal after an injury. That kind of took him out for pretty much the entire year. And then you also have who I think, if this player stays healthy, to me, the comeback player of the year for the Saints, um, it's got to be Eric McCoy. It's low-hanging fruit. I don't care. I'm taking it. Eric McCoy to me would be probably the um, if you can give me 17 healthy games out of anybody last year who ended up getting hurt, um, taking out a player like Olave who missed one game for a blood clot, someone who missed more than, let's say, 5 games, it's to me has to be Eric McCoy. Just going over the numbers since McCoy has been drafted in 2019, he is 51 and 37 in his career when he plays football. When he plays football, he is 51 and 37. The team, when he does not play football, he has missed 29 games. All those games came since 2021. The team has a 34% win percentage, going 10 and 19. So, few things to call out with that. Number one, 29 games missed since 2021 is not a one-off. It is not a um, situation where you can plan without that backup anymore. 29 games since 2021 is way too many games to be missing. He's played one full season since 2021, and that was in 2023 when the team went 9 and 8. Um, this is why there's so much discussion about what the Saints' plan at backup center is. This is not a position the Saints really identified or drafted um, at all, which is why, again, whenever people were asking Mickey Loomis about Jeremiah Wright, is he going to play guard and center? Are you going to? I think at this point in time, your backup center, and I've heard a few podcasts also say this as well. Is probably Cesar Ruiz. If McCoy's going to miss a lot of games, you probably put Ruiz in there, backup center, um, to be your starter, I guess, and go from there. Wright or Simpkins or whoever can win that guard spot. Radens, for the backup to Cesar Ruiz at right guard. But again, Cesar Ruiz was drafted in the first round as a center. It's something that needs to be reminded, or people need to be reminded of. He was brought in on this team to compete with Eric McCoy for that center position. He was absolutely, um, you know, in the plans for long-term center on this team. I don't know exactly what happened to that plan. I don't know if it was injury. I don't know what it ended up being, but he was supposed to be that starting center potentially long term. He was brought in to compete with McCoy. McCoy is just, he's a top 3 center in the NFL, so he didn't beat him out, and that's understandable. But with his injury history, maybe it's time to really bring part that part of Ruiz's game back, and maybe he'll excel at center. Maybe it'll be the last little bit to kind of unlock his career and kind of continue to grow. I'm not optimistic that a position switch will fix him. That rarely does fix players in the NFL, but sometimes it works, especially on the offensive line, and that's not something that Kellen Moore's um, unfamiliar with. I don't remember if it's Becton. I think it's Becton, the former tackle that shifted to guard with Moore, and they win a Super Bowl with him, and he gets paid at guard. Sometimes a position switch does fix the player, especially if it's what you're used to. But again, when you're at a 34% win clip with your starting center out, it shows how important that player is to your team and why it's so important to have him healthy. And if he is healthy for 17 games next year, I do think that this is a team that could actually make some noise in the NFL. All right, finally, something that was talked about again a little bit right before the draft. I thought something might happen during the draft, but Kenny Moore is still a corner for the Indianapolis Colts. It is still known that he is going to be seeking a trade, and that the Colts are okay with getting rid of him. You have a 30-year-old slot corner who is a starter in the NFL. He's someone who could play the star role. He's somebody who can just come in and be a good veteran presence as well. If the Saints would end up trading for him, he's got proven starter snaps and games. He's versatile. He can cover very well from the slot. He's a very, very good blitzer, and he's good in run support as well. So you have a player who kind of fits a little bit of what Alante did, like a lot of what Alante did last year, minus the outside snaps. And you have a player that is absolutely. going to come in here and have a starting role identified for him probably out the gate. At that point, it's just the compensation. What do you give up for Kellen or Kenny Moore if you're going to get him? And the most recent player that I could think of was Stephon Gilmore. Someone who was at one point probably a little bit more elite in their career, but at this point in time of the trade, still very good, still highly regarded, but not where he was. Stephon Gilmore was an outside corner though, and he got a fifth round pick whenever he got traded. Think of CJ Gardner Johnson, day three pick as well. It sounded like that was more or less going to be a we're going to cut him anyway situation. So, um, you know, really can't use that, I guess, as much of a good measuring point. But with that being said, if you can get a Kenny Moore for a fifth round pick, I would absolutely take it. Um, Not saying I would want the team to continue giving up picks, but a fifth round pick for a 30-year-old corner who might have 1 or 2 good years left, um, that also could be a steep price to be asking for, and that's probably why he's not traded. Because if you are the Colts, you're probably looking at the talent that you're losing, not the fact that hey, he's 30 years old. You do have contract flexibility. I think he's got a shorter term contract. You can either just extend him or let him play it out and move on really with little risk towards your long-term cap flexibility. So that's really not a concern. The concern comes down to 30-year-old player that you're trading a fifth round pick for. You already don't have a seventh rounder because that was part of the Devon Vele trade. You already lost your original sixth round pick for Jalen Polk, so you are down two picks, but you do have the Chargers sixth round pick, which was part of the Trevor Penning trade. So it's one of those asset kind of when you look at the assets you have, do you have is Kenny Moore coming in here and is he an upgrade over what you have? And that might be where Camp comes in and you really see that that position is struggling and you need to bring somebody back in and maybe that's when Moore gets moved. Maybe Moore gets moved when there's an injury. Um, Definitely a lot of options on the table for that. But I do think that when you lose Alontae Taylor and you don't really address it in the draft, it's going to be a question mark. And then these kinds of players are always going to be at least talked about for joining this team at some point in the future. And just so everybody also, comp picks, I don't think the Saints are getting any. You lose Alontae Taylor, he does sign a big contract, but you sign Achan, Edwards, Ellis, Fant, and Ryan Wright all within the comp pick compensation calculation window. Um, all of their contracts will hit that. I don't think the Saints are getting anything for Alontae Taylor with those other contracts that were signed. So, not something I would expect either. But that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for hopping in and watching this one. If you enjoyed it, press that subscribe button, drop us a like, and share it with your friends. As always, we'll catch you next time.